times when singers die, they leave behind a substantial amount of unfinished songs, and their record label and estate releases them through posthumous albums without the approval of the late artist. But what if the label hired a sound-alike to impersonate the singer? Like this strange story of Michael Jackson and the fake vocals that appeared on his first posthumous album. Here is my second ghost singing breakdown. And if you haven't already, please watch my first ghost singing video about Jennifer Lopez. And before I get into the topic, I just want to say that everything on this video is alleged because I am not trying to be sued by Sony or Tommy Mottola. Now let's get into the video.
This is very important because throughout the years, black artists have been taken advantage of. And it's time now that we have to put a stop to this incredible injustice. And like Mrs. Sharpton was saying, people from James Brown to Sammy Davis Jr., some of the real pioneers that inspired me to be the entertainer that I am. These artists are always on tour because if they stopped touring, they would totally go broken. And it's been, the record companies really do conspire against their artists. They steal, they cheat, they do whatever they can, especially the black artists.
At the time of his death, in June 2009, Michael Jackson was in the middle of working on an album. The project was to be his first in nearly a decade since his sixth and final studio album, Invincible, released in 2001. Michael accused the record industry and Tommy Mottola of exploiting and mistreating black artists during a press conference with Reverend Al Sharpton back in 2002. He claimed that Tommy and Sony tried to destroy what was to have been his comeback album, Invincible, by failing to promote it. If you saw my first ghost singing video about Jennifer Lopez, you'd realize that Tommy Mottola was the same person who tried to sabotage his ex-wife Mariah Carey's career in favor of Jennifer Lopez. Michael had a disagreement with Sony over the licenses to the masters of his albums. He wanted to have complete ownership of his valuable catalog of master recordings without having to split royalty payments with Sony. Secondly, Sony refused to pay $8 million for the third video from Invincible. And this is what set off the campaign by Michael and Reverend Al Sharpton against Sony.
Tommy Mottola. Tommy Mottola is the president of the record division. He is a mean, he's a, and he's very devilish. Yes. So I need your support, not just for me. When you fight for me, you're fighting for all black people. Dead and alive. It seems to me, I really believe it's a conspiracy because the story always ends the same. We pioneer, we innovate. You know, at the end of the story, you know, it's not an accident. It's happened on purpose. So we have to put an end to it forever.
Yes, sir. They sell their CDs in our communities, and they made billions of dollars. Michael Jackson made billions of dollars for the industry, and now for him to ask for fairness is not controversial, it's no more than right. He does not want you to give your child money to buy his record, and he's not protect the integrity of your child. He does not want you to spend your money and not be respected by the people that make the profit. And you're right, Tommy Mottola is what it is. Nothing.
What they did was really terrible, and not just to me, but some of their other artists too. You know, from George Michael to Mariah Carey to, you know, yeah. He has got to go. He has got to be terminated.
Michael tried to get out of his contract with Sony and was planning on suing, but found out that his own lawyer was representing Tommy Mottola. Despite the release date of October 2001, Sony didn't give the album licenses to Michael until years later, and this played a major role in him not releasing music anymore. Shortly after his death, The Michael Jackson estate and Sony Music signed a $250 million deal for dozens of his never-before-heard songs to be released in 10 new albums over the next 7 years. In 2010, Sony and Michael Jackson's estate announced plans to release his first posthumous album titled Michael. He was reported to be working on music in the years prior to his death and recorded music with Akon. Akon explained that the rest of his collaborations with Michael were incomplete when he died and planned on destroying the recordings out of respect for Michael and his craft. will.i.am, another producer who had been working with him before his death, insisted that the new album shouldn't ever come out and said, "It's disrespectful. Michael Jackson's songs are finished when Michael says they're finished. Maybe if I never worked with him, I wouldn't have this perspective, but he was very particular. Now that he's not part of the process, what are they doing?" Michael had been close to the Cascio family since the 80s and had been regularly visiting their home for 25 years. Eddie Cascio and his collaborative partner James Port claimed that Michael secretly co-wrote and recorded 12 songs in Eddie's New Jersey basement back in late 2007. According to TMZ, Michael and his kids stayed at the Cascio's family home for 4 months in 2007 when the tracks were recorded, along with remixes that were released on the Thriller 25 album. Teddy Riley, who worked closely in the studio with Michael Jackson throughout his career, was asked to lend his production skills to a number of tracks being considered by Sony for release, including a handful of Cascio tracks. During the production sessions, Teddy and Michael's nephew Terrell Jackson, who's Tito's son, noticed that the vocals sounded a little suspicious and raised concerns about the authenticity of the vocals on a number of tracks provided by Eddie. That's when Michael's estate launched an investigation. Michael's family, mother, and children all made statements calling the tracks false and opposed the release.
What do you think of the whole thing? Do you think that's your brother's song? They're saying it's not his.
You know what? I listened to it.
Thank you very much.
It doesn't sound like him.
It doesn't sound like him?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
Terrell tweeted, "I am shocked that things have gotten this far. This is ridiculous. I tried so hard to prevent this craziness, but they wouldn't listen. I know my uncle's voice, and something's seriously wrong when you have immediate family saying it's not him. They can't give me answers, yet continue to move forward with lies and deception. Sounding like Michael Jackson and being Michael Jackson are two different things." Despite all the mess, Teddy Riley still continued to work on the tracks, but started insisting numerous times that the vocals were in fact Michael's. Sony Music also insisted that sufficient research had been done and that the label was satisfied and went with whatever Eddie provided them with. In a statement, they said, "We have complete confidence in the results of our extensive research as well as the accounts of those who were in the studio with Michael that the vocals on the new album are his own."
Eddie, there have been some questions, you know, about, first of all, that this is people saying that this isn't Michael's voice. Yes. You know that. What can you tell us about that?
I can tell you that it is Michael's voice. He recorded right there in my basement.
In that little room with the mat on the floor?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So sophisticated.
I was, yeah.
Sophisticated studios there.
It was a home. It was a home studio, and you know, we worked. I was there pushing the buttons. He was right there directing, and that's Michael Jackson.
Some of the tracks on Michael's new album were finished by his longtime producer and friend, Teddy Riley. Teddy worked with Michael for over 18 years on some of his most successful albums, including Dangerous and History and Invincible. He was also one of 6 producers and engineers who verified the authenticity of Michael's voice. So what do you, hi, welcome. Hi, how are you? What do you say to the doubters?
I say to the doubters, along with my friends who also worked with Michael over 20 years, over 25 years, this is Michael's voice. And so many people, including some of the family, they doubt that it's him. But we professionally, we've been around him.
Why do they doubt that it's him? Do they recognize the relationship? Was the family aware of this relationship with you all?
Yeah.
They were aware, okay. Why do you say for sure it is him?
Because you can hear the authenticity in his voice, and you can hear like the natural part of him, and no one could really do a scream like that strong scream on the music that you hear, like Michael. I don't care if you get anyone, they will never be able to duplicate Michael's voice.
People were saying that Michael's voice is fake on the track that you worked on.
Why have to only be my track?
Exactly though,
See,
right?
I've been working with him
because you were there.
Almost 20 years. Believe me, this is really Michael's voice.
Yeah.
Whoever says whatever,
I mean,
I really don't care what anybody say about it. I know it, and I've worked with him longer than anybody else who can comment about it.
Yeah, so definitely it's Mike on the track.
Yes,
man.
promise you.
All right.
Terrell released another statement that said, "I've always admired the talent of Teddy Riley, but after hearing him lie on Oprah, I am terribly disappointed." When Michael was released in December of 2010, the authenticity of the vocals on the lead single, Breaking News, along with two other tracks, Keep Your Head Up and Monster, immediately came into question by fans, music writers, and the general public. And eventually, the impersonator behind the vocals would be identified as Jason Malachi, a pop artist from Maryland. This made sense because back in 2007, a song called Mamacita made its way around the internet, with people thinking it was a new MJ track. But it turned out it was actually a song by Jason.
Wedding to small words will take my breath away. Don't say I promise this and I mean it. You will be my one and only.
He wrote a post on Facebook in early 2011 and admitted to singing on the album, but he later removed it. The post read, "Sheesh guys, I guess it's time to confess. I've lied to many people, including someone today, but it was me. It was me who sang Breaking News, Keep Your Head Up, Monster, and Stay. I had an agreement with the record company, but now the cat is out the bag. Sorry to all my fans and fellow Michael Jackson fans." Here's a comparison between an original song by Jason Malachi compared to one of the songs on the Michael Jackson album.
Now I'm lying in the dark, lying in the shell. One more chance, please tell me you'll try. There's a monster. When you look up in the air, there's a monster. Too bad. Hollywood has got you jump. Body wanting a piece of Michael Jackson. Reporters know what. You just wanna read it again.
But Michael was approaching his 50s when these alleged vocals were recorded, and his voice had already deteriorated quite a bit since the 80s.
Always something no good. So your tongue became a razor. Someone's always lying. Toward my baby. Lying. My baby's slowly dying.
In 2013, Teddy Riley had a change of heart and apologized. He said, "I was given a problem that involved my best friend and signed a contract to remix what I had. It was too late for me to turn back, so I finished out the project. Now, if you want me to apologize for that, yes, I'm sorry I did it." Then crap hit the fan in 2014 when a lawsuit was filed against Sony Music and MJJ Productions by Vera Sarova, a fan of Michael Jackson's who bought the album Michael and became suspicious that the songs in question weren't sung by Michael himself. If you guys remember, Milli Vanilli was famously sued by fans in the 90s for the very same reason. Vera hired independent audio expert Dr. George Papkin to evaluate the tracks when she realized there wasn't much evidence that Michael actually had anything to do with them. Dr. George, a forensic audiologist, determined in a 41-page report that the vocals on the songs very likely did not belong to him, and his assessment was peer-reviewed by a council and deemed reasonable. As part of the class action suit, Vera was also suing Eddie Cascio, James Port, and Angelic Sin Productions for fraud. Multiple outlets reported that Sony had allegedly admitted in a Los Angeles Superior Court that the 3 songs credited to Michael Jackson on his posthumous album Michael were in fact fakes. Sony realized they had fraudulent recordings, but went ahead and lied about it anyway. They argued that this would not mean they did not have the right to sell the songs under his name. In the end, the judges ruled in favor of Sony Music and the Michael Jackson estate on the basis that Sony and the estate did not know for a fact whether Michael Jackson sung the songs. Judges ruled that Sony and the estate could not be held accountable under commercial speech and are protected by the First Amendment. At the end of the day, the artists and their music are just a business, and record labels will always find ways to profit off of an iconic singer's death. It was disrespectful for Sony to release Michael Jackson's music knowing that he didn't trust them. He always knew they only wanted to profit off of him. But this is just one of the many shady stories about Sony Music.
Otis Blackwell, you heard her name, Otis Blackwell? Otis Blackwell wrote most of the Elvis Presley songs. This man died penniless.
If you have a chance, please go listen to the tracks in question and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe to Black Femininity TV for more content.